marched on Parliament in protest against labour brokering and the Gauteng e-tolling system. Members of Parliament voiced their concern about the protest action a day before, and Deputy Minister Jeremy Cronin responds. And we have more statements from MPs on topical national, provincial and local issues. Let's go to our first item. Thousands of workers in the Western Cape sacrificed a day's salary to participate in the Cosatu march. The Trade Union Federation is calling for an outright ban on labour brokers. But the Western Cape Chamber of Commerce says Cosatu's nationwide strike over labour brokering and the e-tolling system has had no major impact on the province's economy. Crystal Odderson followed the protest action and compiled this report on views from outside the House.
Clad in red t-shirts waving UDF, ANC and Cosatu banners, thousands heeded Cosatu's call. They thronged the city's streets en route to Parliament. Protesters here say youth unemployment, labour brokers and the scourge of drug abuse are some of the factors guiding their decision to support the strike. Women workers here say labour brokering is rife and they are treated like machines with no benefits.
Die baas gebruik die workers, die labour brokers. As daar nie mense in die werk is nie, dan gebruik hulle vir hulle om ons werke te doen. En wat ek vanoggend reeds gehoor het van my baas, hy sê die labour brokers is daar om 'n target te maak.
We're working for the agents, and the agents, for instance, if you pay 22 rand, they will take a half of your salary.
We're still fighting for an increase for the third year now. And like she also said, they use the people and they say they're here to set a target to make money, whereby our people don't have jobs, they're getting underpaid.
The National Association of Bargaining Council suggests that there are close to 980,000 labour brokers working in the country. Local businesses left nothing to chance. In the past, they suffered damages worth thousands. Many opted to close shop for the duration of the march. Cosatu's Western Cape Secretary, Tony Ehrenreich, says it's unacceptable that labour brokering continues after months of talks to have it scrapped.
It's unacceptable that the Labour Minister didn't come, but more importantly, it's unacceptable that 17 years later, we must march for rights we were guaranteed under the Freedom Charter. Decent labour standards, the right to organise ourselves, all of which is taken away by labour brokers. Labour brokers must end now or they'll lead to a serious crisis in this country.
The Cape Chamber of Commerce says the issue of labour broking has been debated for months and that legislation around the issue is expected soon.
This has been debated back and forth for many months and we can't see what their problem is today. It has already been submitted to government, it's already been submitted to the government printers, and we expect that we're going to have legislation very soon.
The Director General of Labour accepted the memorandum on behalf of the Minister and said it will form part of the discussions between government, business and labour. There were no reports of disruptions in and around the city. Crystal Odderson, SABC News, Cape Town.
Cosatu's national protest action against labour brokers and the Gauteng's e-tolling system was also high on the minds of MPs in the National Assembly earlier this week. COPE MP Alfred Kganare said it was unacceptable for any government to introduce an e-tolling system without providing alternative routes, whilst IFP MP Koos van der Merwe said the protest march is an indication of an ever-widening connection between the ANC government, organised labour and civil society.
Speaker, tomorrow our country will again experience disruptions as a result of the governing party's refusal to listen to reason. Despite the calls for the enforcement of the Gauteng freeway tolling to be halted, the arrogance of the governing ANC emerged victorious again. As a result, Mr. Speaker, Cosatu's call for a march against tolling is understandable. It is aimed at channeling and harnessing the anger and frustration of the potential victims of this greed. Mr. Speaker, it is really unacceptable for any government to introduce this type of tolling without providing alternative routes. If one has to move from Western to OR Tambo Airport, one has to pass approximately 6 toll gates, since these have been created to ensure that road users are milked dry. Mr. Speaker, whilst COPE understand and support Cosatu's demands and march, we don't support the disruption of schooling and education. We believe that educators and learners should be kept out of this fight. This, Mr. Speaker, is not a new call, because during the height of the fight against apartheid, strikes and stay-aways were called, but nurses and doctors were always exempted. It is high time that the people of South Africa should understand that the attitude of the ANC government in relation to this Gauteng tolling is the permanent nature of the arrogance they have been displaying. This is not an exemption. It is part of the ANC DNA. Cosatu must learn and learn fast. Governance is not only elections, but what counts is what happens between elections.
Mr. Speaker, tomorrow's planned strike by members of Cosatu and other organizations, we are told the largest strike ever in the country, is yet another indication of the ever-widening disconnect between the ANC-led government, organized labor and the people of South Africa. 32 marches are planned to take place tomorrow, effectively grinding business to a halt with an estimated opportunity cost to our economy of over 8 billion rand. Honourable Speaker, why does the ANC-led government no longer listen to the voice of the people of South Africa? Why does the ANC-led government continue to push policy and legislation that is contrary to the will of the people? Yesterday, the Honourable Minister Radebe talked about ANC policy which would ensure a better life for all. Tomorrow's strike action, however, remains what it is and will be another scathing indictment of how the ANC-led government is continuing to fail the people of this country.
The Deputy Minister of Transport, Mr. Jeremy Cronin, told Parliament that government has accumulated a debt of 20 billion rand on the e-tolling system and there has to be a way to pay off that debt. He said a recent study indicates that very few poor people will be affected by the e-tolling system and 98% of the costs will be carried by the middle class and rich people.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. The Honourable Kganare predictably opportunistically jumps onto the bandwagon of Cosatu strikes tomorrow. You know, even the DA was invited by Cosatu here in the Western Cape to join the strike. Cope wasn't invited. Shame. I understand why you feel so agitated about this matter. What the Honourable Member doesn't tell us is that this project, which is a problematic project, we are the first to concede, the e-tolling in Gauteng, was pioneered by Cope member, or is he still a Cope member? I'm never sure about these things, Mbazima Shilowa, during the time that he was a premier in the province. Now, this administration, if we could rewind the clock, and of course we can't, but if we could, we would certainly think 3 and 4 times about the advisability of proceeding with this very costly project, which does not have a strong developmental character to it. However, it's there, or part of it is there. We have spent 20 billion rand. We've now got a 20 billion rand debt. And what the Honourable Member doesn't tell us is how we are going to deal with that debt. What we have tried to do, and I'll tell you how we're going to deal with it. What we have done is we've listened to the public. We have reduced the e-tolling for light vehicles to 30 cents from 60 cents for light vehicles. The Minister of Finance has put in a whopping 5.57 billion rand out of the fiscus in order to reduce by more than a quarter the debt. There's a 550 rand cap for e-tagged vehicles per month. There's a time of day reduction for heavy vehicles to encourage them to use it off-peak. Public transport vehicles, buses and minibuses are totally exempted from any e-tolling. Now, what we were told perpetually is this is going to hit the poor. But only in a recent count of vehicles on the system, only 2% of the vehicles were in fact minibuses and buses, transport that is used by the poor, the working class poor. A recent study by a Macquarie academic said that 98% of the toll load would be carried by middle class rich spenders. So this is how we're trying to deal with a debt. We have learnt a strong lesson, as the Minister of Finance and Minister of Transport correctly said about this matter. This is exactly why we have now got a Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Commission to carefully assess what we spend infrastructure money on so that we prioritize the correct priorities. This is what we intend to do. What the DA is suggesting we do is that we should increase the fuel levy, which means that everyone, all drivers throughout South Africa,
Member, your time is expired,
would have to pay for a debt for roads used by people in Gauteng.
Order, honourable members.
After the break, the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs respond to allegations of corruption in the Sundays River Valley municipality. Don't go away.